Welcome back to episode 80 of In the Shadow of the Evening Trees. I'm Jen Von Ebers.
I'm Dave Von Ebers. It is Sunday, April 20th, so happy Patti Smith Day to all who celebrate.
There you go.
Patti Smith had an album called Easter, of course, which
Okay.
is very successful. So
That's that. I did not know that.
Happy
Little
Patti
tidbit.
Smith Day.
Fantastic. For those who celebrate.
For those who celebrate. And happy Easter for real.
Yes, happy Easter for real.
We're not really in our Sunday best.
We are
if
not.
you're watching on video. But
Yes. Which is fine. We're taking it's a casual weekend this weekend.
It's a casual weekend, yeah.
It's the first weekend in a long time that we didn't have one of us didn't have, or both of us didn't have something going on. So it was kind of nice to just like chill, have no plans or whatever. So that's been nice.
And you can't see her on the video, but our cat Gordy is hovering right next to us.
Literally has been sleeping all day, and so we're like, we think we'll record this before we go to the grocery store. It's raining outside. Maybe the raining will stop, and as soon as we get going, she wakes up and then starts walking in and it's just like, hey, I just want to be with you guys.
Yep.
So she may join us and might be crying.
She might cry. She might interrupt.
Yes.
But it's a lovely sound. We enjoy it.
But we wanted to start again this episode regarding our fundraising efforts for Lambda Legal. This is the invitation.
We just
to
got
the
ours
gala,
in the mail this week.
which is exciting, and we are part of the host committee. So our
The
names
host
are
committee
in print in this brochure.
By the way, if you're listening, I just held up the invitation. We do this in so many different ways. We don't know who's listening, who's
You can listen to
watching.
it, you can watch it. So yeah, if you watched it, we just showed the invitation. So we are fundraising for Lambda Legal, and if you're not familiar with that organization, they've been around for a very long time, and they help with legal fights and just a lot of things in general for the LGBTQ plus community.
And they actually have got, I believe, 4 pending lawsuits against the Trump administration for various things. The attack on DEI, the ban on transgender people serving in the military, and so forth. They've gotten 2 preliminary injunctions in those 4 cases. We'll include in the notes a link to where you can buy tickets to the event if you're going to be in Chicago on May 9th. We'll include a link to our fundraising page if you'd like to make a donation if you're not able to attend. And we'll also put a link into the Lambda Legal page that describes some of the work they're currently doing so you get a sense of what they're up to. They've been around for 51 years.
Yes.
Fighting for people with HIV, fighting for the LGBTQ plus community generally. And they've had a lot of success, but needless to say, it takes a lot of money to hire lawyers. They're currently hiring new staff and new attorneys. To maintain that level of success in protecting the rights of marginalized people, and especially LGBTQ plus people.
Yes.
And now it's also becoming very important that they advocate on behalf of people with HIV because, of course, the Trump administration is attacking AIDS funding now, too, on top of everything else they're doing. They're going after like the most vulnerable people in every imaginable situation.
Yes.
And that now includes people who are dealing with HIV and AIDS. And, as somebody who grew up, obviously, I'm
in the height of it.
Yeah, I'm 62. I'll be 63 in a little bit. Right in the height of the pandemic, the AIDS pandemic, or epidemic, I should say, in the 80s and 90s, lost friends, including the namesake of this event that we're part of. To see this coming, like everything just keeps coming back to haunt us. Now, they're cutting funding for AIDS research and so forth. So
we are happy to help in any way, shape, or form to keep this organization going, and it's been amazing being part of this host committee and just learning more about Lambda Legal. You've known about it obviously for a long time and been involved with it, and I'm happy to be involved with this year too.
Yes.
And we even marched, if there was a thing I'm putting in my hands and heart. But
if it was FaceTime,
it
would explode on the screen.
Hearts. And we even walked in the Chicago Gay Pride Parade this past summer, so that was fun. With Lambda. In David's first parade.
My first parade. We talked about that.
Yeah.
That is a true story. It was my first parade.
But one thing about fundraising is David and I are not new to fundraising. We also raised money for another organization while we were running marathons for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and by joining that organization, they provided the coaching, all the things, and then the race was free, the coaching was free,
Yep.
but you had to fundraise a certain dollar amount, which is always daunting, when you have to do it, especially then times two, because we're both doing
Right.
it kind of thing. But even now, reaching out to people and former people that we've worked with and colleagues and friends,
Right.
sharing our link, that part has been actually nice, just kind of reconnecting with people that you haven't, who also might have a similar, cause, or what am I trying to say? A similar reason for supporting, that
Right.
you may not
They
even
might
have known
have
about.
similar connections to the cause.
Yes.
And this is how most organizations make their money, and certainly how Lambda does. It's all through private donations. And a friend of mine, one of my oldest friends, shout out to Joel, our good buddy Joel. He's retired, but he still tries to donate to a lot of different causes. And one of the things that he does is he will identify different causes that friends and family members support, and he'll post on his own social media page, hey, make a $25 donation or whatever to this cause, that cause. He did that for us.
Yes.
Also donated.
Thanks,
Joel. And that kind of thing, not just for Lambda Legal, but for any kind of organization, is enormously helpful today. It's always enormously helpful, but even in the best of times, the organizations that advocate for marginalized people, or support research for different kinds of diseases, or support unhoused people or people who need food, organizations that take care of stray animals, all these sorts of things, they always need help. And so give till it hurts. That's my motto. Give till it hurts.
Well, and that's the thing, is a lot of people think, well, I can't donate because I only have $5 to give, or whatever.
Right.
And those $5, times a bunch of people adds up. So we always say no amount is too small to donate, because small amounts by many adds up to that. So
Absolutely.
We appreciate your support, and we are very looking forward to the event.
Right.
In a couple weeks, actually.
Yeah. It's just
3 weeks away.
It's like
Right,
a little bit less. It's May 9th.
Yes.
May 9th. 19 days away, since there's only 30 days in April.
That's true.
It's one of the ones that falls in between your knuckles when you do the thing.
That is true.
If people know that thing.
I know. I never. You know it really.
Yeah, because
good.
you go January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December.
Nice.
That's how you can tell the days that have 30. Well, that's how you tell the days with 31 days.
Right.
But of course, February is the only one that is odd in that group.
I wish I had known that, because there's a lot of times where it's just like, I don't know. So yeah, we're looking forward to that.
We're from Chicago. We do a lot of things with our knuckles.
With the fists. But I'm getting a drink of water, so sorry.
Yeah, I've had multiple drinks of water.
But we actually ventured out last night to a new restaurant in our
did?
town, to the town next to us,
We
kind of thing. And as we've mentioned before, so this is actually coming up in May. Will be 4 years since we moved up here. For those of you, I'm just going to fill you in really quickly. David and I grew up literally a mile and a half apart from each other our whole lives.
In the Twin Cities of Oak Park and River Forest.
The Twin Cities of Oak Park and River, yes. And we didn't obviously meet until we were adults, but obviously we had friends in common and things like that. But both of us growing up in the same town our whole lives, you get ensconced, and and it's just kind of like familiar. You know people, you know where to go, you know how to get places without a map.
Well, it helps when things are laid out on a grid,
Yes.
as God intended.
Yes. So at the time, we were David's been self-employed, worked from home. I also worked from home, so it didn't matter where we lived. So we're just like, let's just go, kind of thing. So we the community that we're in now. It's been a learning curve for sure, because like
Yes,
David
it
said,
has.
everything's a windy street.
It's like Boston compared to like Manhattan, if you could picture an aerial view of those two.
Yes, it's easy to get lost. So literally for the longest time, even just going to like my dentist's office, I was putting it on the map, and then the first time I did it by myself without knowing where I'm going, I'm like, I know how to get to the dentist now.
Yes.
I don't know how to get back, but I know how to get there.
Yeah. That's the thing, is we use Apple Maps for everything, which is great because we always arrive,
Yes.
but we never really have a sense of where we're going, because
No.
the thing just tells you to make a left turn, and you make a left turn, and you don't really learn the route.
Yes.
That's my experience anyway.
And so my one tip for you, which has helped us, is if there is a community Facebook group
Yes.
that is part of your town, which I joined pretty much right away.
Right off the bat.
After I introduced myself to new people, everybody in the area.
Walk into Target. Hi.
This is my first time to
Jennifer.
Target.
Yeah.
My name's Jen. We just moved here. And
Yeah.
I actually did do that. And David's like, this is not her first time in
In
a Target.
in a
It's just
Target.
in this Target. I just need to know the lay of the land.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And you like to introduce yourself.
I do. Well, and it's funny because we post, pictures from our walk every day, and from the pictures, it makes it seem like we live in this very rural, out in the middle of nowhere kind of thing, and it's kind of a misnomer because it is just a path in the middle of a subdivision. It maybe is 4 miles long. Do you think from the
I think so,
Hunt
from
Club to the
from start
horse
to
farm?
finish, and we only do like a mile out and back,
Or a
basically.
mile and a half if it's my phone.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Or no, your watch, your
My
Apple
watch,
Watch.
yes.
Yeah.
But it is a little pocket of peace in our neighborhood kind of thing. But the town that we live in gets 23 million visitors a year.
Yeah. It's a bustling village.
It's a bustling village. We have a giant mall, one of the biggest malls in America, but not even a mile from us. And then we have Six Flags amusement park, which is 10 minutes from us. So those bring in a lot of people, and there's tons of shopping and things like that. So yes, there is lots of nature, which I do love, a lot of protected nature. So that's never going to go away kind of thing. So that's lovely. So I do enjoy that kind of atmosphere where I do love nature, and I do love being outside and getting the sunshine and stuff like that.
It's a good thing I have a loud voice, because I just realized that the microphone was
on the other side.
Was on the other side. We didn't really set up properly today.
So if you're just hearing this, this is episode. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh dear God.
So anyway, I joined the Facebook group, learning about everything. And there's one admin in particular. Her name is Deb.
We love Deb.
We love Deb. Still have not met her in person. However, she posts daily things that are going on in the village and in surrounding areas too. So it's not just our town, but it'll be the things, restaurants opening, music venues, all sorts of things. So always in the know. And she was the first person that I learned about the walking group that we joined, which we walk every Saturday with. So thanks, Deb, for that. So we had seen this restaurant, maybe it was in the fall when our daughter was home. We went to a restaurant that was further from that. And when we drove back, we noticed this restaurant, and it's like borders on a lake. Lake Sand is the name of it.
Or Sand Lake.
Sand Lake.
You can say it either way. I think.
Like sand. Sand Lake.
Right.
It's not very big. It's not like a giant lake or anything. It's not like Lake Michigan or anything like that. But it is a water feature, and it is there. So we passed it, and so it was just like in my head of just like, we should check that out. But there's so many restaurants that we've tried haven't been super great, or there's a lot of fast food around here, so it's just tremendously, and it's like, but also like the places like Outback Steakhouse, Chili's, Olive Garden, TGI Fridays, all these places that Red Robin, that I don't really want to go on a regular basis, not to diss their food or anything. It's just not my vibe. So
we have been known to order from certain places for delivery, but we'll leave that aside.
We will leave that aside. So beforehand, I reached out via instant message on Facebook to ask our friend Deb, hey, have you been to this restaurant? And we were going regardless. But I just wanted to get an idea of like what she thought about it and stuff like that. So while we were at the restaurant, I checked my phone, and she actually did make a comment, and she was like, no, I haven't been, but they're having an event there for the chief of police there, so I'm sure it's like, if it must be nice, kind of thing. I haven't been there. They changed ownership, whatever. We actually had a great time.
I thought it was good.
These are the reasons why I liked it. You got sat right away. So that was good. There was a bar in the middle. There was TVs, there was music, but it wasn't overpowering with noise. So I also hate that too, where you go to a restaurant and it's just like so loud in there, like you can't even hear yourself think or like have a conversation because it's just like you're shouting and things like that. The service was excellent. Like immediately, that's our first time there. And then our waiter came up and was like, "What can I get you a drink?" And I was just like, kind of like.
We froze.
I did. So that was nice. And then the outdoor patio is not open yet because it's still freezing here. So, but we were able to walk around and see what it looks like after dinner. Took a few pictures, which was nice. I thought we both got burgers. I thought mine was delicious.
Yeah. And you can't go wrong with a place that has good burgers.
That is true. That is true. So it's just kind of been a nice way to explore our town and just try to figure things out. And actually, I ended up posting on that Facebook page our experience. So now I'm part of that group even more.
You're now ensconced in
I
that
am
group. We
ensconced.
were ensconced in our hometown, and now you're
Yes.
ensconced in that group.
Well, and I'm sure a lot of you maybe have done this too, even if you've moved states or we only moved 40 miles away. So it's not like we moved super far, but you are starting over, and it's just like your friends aren't going to drive 40, 80 miles round trip every weekend to see you, kind of thing.
Right. Well, also in the Chicago area, 40 miles is like a 2-hour drive.
For sure.
Not really. But I mean,
Yeah.
traffic is always bad.
Mm-hmm.
As they say, we have 2 seasons. We have winter and we have road construction. And that's really a pretty fair statement.
That is true.
Because I'm not even sure it's spring yet. But
Yeah.
that's a different topic.
But it has been nice to use that Facebook group just to learn about things that are going on. And I think the people that we've met through Walking Club, a lot of them support the same cause as we do, which is
true.
nice. A lot of them are out there at protests and things and, supporting trans rights and everything. So
And common decency
yes, so that has been
seems to be a rare commodity.
Yeah, that has been really nice, just to kind of get with like-minded people because, even if you move, I think it's a lot easier, we've mentioned this before, if you have small children in schools, then you meet the parents of your kids walking to school or at events, at sporting things, and that's how you become part of the community. But when your kids are all grown up, then it's just us.
And then the other thing too is working remotely is kind of weird in that sense because when I started out as a lawyer in 1987, there really wasn't remote work. I mean, maybe in some jobs, but not for lawyer type jobs. So I mean, you have sort of a built-in friend group because especially I started out in bigger firms, and so people around the same age or experience level, whatever, tend to kind of gather together, and then we do stuff outside of the job, and so you make a lot of friends that way. So on top of remote work and our kids not being in school anymore, you really do sort of lose some connections.
And you lost me as a coworker when I had you the
That
job
is
outside
true.
the house.
That is true. I had a coworker
who was so great.
who abandoned me.
It's funny that you mentioned that because when we did move up here for several years, I was working at home also with my job. And actually I didn't mind it, kind of thing. And I really liked it, not having the commute, obviously, and being able to run errands at lunch or, obviously we could see each other throughout the day and stuff like that.
Which was fantastic.
You loved it so much.
I did.
I did joke when we first got, when it was like, oh, go home for 2 weeks, kind of thing, bring your stuff home and everything. And I was like, I'm going to be your coworker, kind of thing.
But that was also nice because the kids were sort of trapped with us too. So that was fun. I felt guilty because my job didn't change at all. Everybody else was, they're going through this upheaval, and my
right.
job,
now it had 4 people on top of you,
well,
or you had peace.
That's true. That's true. But it was nice to have everybody home. So I felt a little guilty, and not only did my job not really change that much, but if anything, we were busier. In part because I create a lot of content online for lawyers. I write and edit stuff. So during COVID, there was a lot happening. We had, if anything, more work to do rather than less work to do.
Yes.
So then I really felt guilty. But it is what it is.
But once I found a job that was going to be in the office, 4 days a week, I get to have one day work from home. Part of me was just like, I was sad to give that up, kind of thing. Because even when we were talking about like going on our morning walks and stuff like that, then sometimes we would jump in our bathing suits and go in our pool and do that, and swim for a little bit before work. And that was glorious because you didn't have to, there was no commute time. So then you could just like really right up to the second we had to clock in, kind of thing. We maximized that. But once I was back at work, then you realize this is kind of nice, kind of thing where you have people that you see every day. I think I've always been lucky in the fact that I've always really worked with really, really nice people. I don't know if that happens all the time. There's been some one-offs, but for the most part, I've really had very kind people that I work with, so that makes it nice too. So yeah.
Yeah. And I've been pretty fortunate that way too. In fact, a lot of the people that I started out my career with are still friends of mine. So that's nice.
Yeah.
But it is kind of strange. I've worked from home because when I was in solo practice, I didn't always work from home. I had an office and shared office space with another lawyer. But because our kids were young and in school, a lot of times I did work from home because it was just more convenient.
Right.
So I haven't really been in a regular office for a pretty long time. And it is a little strange not being around colleagues. I mean, we communicate, but it's mostly through email.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Although there's always these, in a remote setting, there's always these conversations about what's the best way to actually keep in touch. And, a lot of people will their first reaction is like, we don't need to have meetings. Let's do everything through email, which I get. I mean, obviously the advantage to email is you can write everything down pretty clearly and concisely, and, you can edit it and think about it and then convey a lot more information. And then you don't also have to, spend time on camera, which some people don't like, which I understand.
Yes.
But then, then there's the flip side. There'll always be somebody who says, well, yeah, generally that's true, but sometimes just a quick call can just knock out a problem or answer a question, and it's much less time consuming than sitting down and writing and then, proofreading it and finding this dumb typos, and then you send it and then someone responds and you see your original email below it and you say, damn, that I didn't catch that typo,
Right.
Anyway, whatever. So there is always this kind of like tension between should everything be in writing or, I don't think anybody wants everything to be a meeting or everything to be a phone call.
Or everything to be on Teams on camera.
Right. But there's always this little, sort of thing. But, I suppose in a sense the same thing happens when you're working in an office too. Because you can email the person in the office next to you, or you can knock on their door, or you can whatever. So, I mean, it's probably not that much different, but it seems like it's a very frequent source of conversation.
Yes.
How to communicate. Which, in the past, you didn't really have to think that much about it. Maybe that's not good, but...
That's true. And I think actually that's the one, I think, good thing about the pandemic, because beforehand, people were just like, didn't want to be on camera on Teams, and it would always be like a confusion of like, how do we set this up, and things like that. And people getting used to it now, I think, is much better. I have two colleagues that are not in Illinois, so I do have to Teams them, and it is nice, to make it feel like more connected, and to be able to see somebody's face, say good morning, and things like that. So that part I do enjoy.
Well, and that's the other thing is for me, because our kids are grown, it's easy for me to be on camera because I don't have to worry about, sometimes there's a cat that jumps up on my desk or whatever, but actually, when it's pets, people like that.
Right.
Like if someone gets a new pet, it's always immediate. Well, let's see that puppy, pick them up, let them, show us your new puppy or whatever. So people like pets.
Well,
that's
and
not much of a
also that
distraction.
was good for you too, because before the pandemic, you used to be able to have a retreat, out of town and everything, and because you were on camera the most.
People knew me.
Yes, you were like
Norm from Cheers. Yeah, that's true.
So it's just like, oh, Dave, kind of thing. So that's kind of fun.
But it's much easier for me because we can work a completely normal schedule since we don't have little kids. Like, I can be at my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning and I can sign off at 6 or whatever in the evening. And I don't have to worry about going to pick up kids from school or going
having a sick kid home.
Yeah. So it's much different for especially younger people and people with kids. Plus also, younger people without kids have lives. They have actual lives.
Right.
They want to socialize and be out with their friends and things like that. So it's nice to have that respite where you don't have to commute and you don't really have to worry exactly about how you dress and everything. I totally get it.
Mm-hmm.
I get it 100%. But for me, I'm just at a different point in my life. I would actually really like to be hanging out in the office, but it is.
Do you want to come to my office sometime? You can.
I could. I'll bring my.
Yeah, because
laptop.
the person I share an office with, they travel a lot. So if it's empty, you could just be there.
The problem is I can't do that because I'd have to bring monitors with me because I can't work with one screen anymore.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
It's ruined me. Yeah.
Yeah, having multiple.
You've got a mega desk.
I do,
and that's hard. That's hard to travel with.
That's true.
So in other news, in other current news, things that upset us this week.
This is I got a lot of problems. This is airing of grievances.
We are going to talk about it because there's two things that drove me nuts this week, and I'm sure it did to you too, is RFK talking about autistic people and Dr. Oz being in charge of Medicare and Medicaid. Those are two things that are a disaster.
Yeah. Well, it's ridiculous. Well, they're both bad in the same way, or in a lot of the same ways, but I couldn't believe the comments about autism. First of all, what is wrong with him? I mean, honest to God, there really is something wrong with him. I think
there is too.
It's either his past heroin use, it's the brain worm that he's talked about, he's mentally, there's something wrong upstairs with RFK Jr. This is not, and I'm not joking. I'm not making fun of him. I'm not, I'm serious. There is something very wrong with this guy. And the more we pretend there's not something wrong with him, the worse it's going to get. So it's inconceivable that he would have said the things he said about autistic people if he had a functioning brain at all. I mean, it really is inconceivable. But aside from that, I mean, you listen to what he's saying about people with autism, and this is the kind of thing this is what eugenics is based on, right? It's people saying, well, that group, they can't do anything, they're not productive, they can't function as adults, whatever. That's like a step or two away of saying, so we should just get rid of them.
We're not going to help them.
We're not going to help them. And it's the same thing when he talks about, mental health and people who take medication to deal with things like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and so forth. He doesn't believe that's real, and he wants to cut back on people's ability to get medications to help with mental health problems. And all of this is sort of eliminationist. It really is, because if you leave people with mental health problems untreated, some of them are going to die. Right. Some of them will take their own lives, or they just won't be able to function. They won't be able to take care of themselves. I say them, I don't mean it like that, because I'm one of them. I have family and friends who've dealt with mental health issues their whole lives. So I'm not pointing to another group and saying, those people over there, I'm part of that group. So don't take it that way if it comes across that way when I say that. But he wants to let people die. And maybe this is a function of his, whatever is going on in his head, which he's clearly not right in the head. He's just not, right? So maybe it's a function of his own, whatever it is, senility. I don't know. I mean, he's an old guy. He's not, he isn't in his right mind. So maybe it's a function of that. But what he's advocating and what he's saying is the basic groundwork for people, for him or somebody else to say, let that group die, or round those people up and put them in a camp somewhere and let them just die off. That's eugenics. When he starts talking about autistic people in those terms, that's eugenics. You cannot justify, it's not just ignorance, it's not just a misunderstanding of reality. It's a manifestly harmful thing to talk about people that way. And like I said, it's the same thing with his attitude about physical health and mental health. It's like either either you're gifted enough to be able to remain healthy without any kind of medical intervention, or you die. And that seemed, and we just came off a pandemic where the attitude by and large was let old people die, let people with immune problems die, let anybody who's vulnerable die, because we don't, because we healthy people don't want to have to wear a mask to the grocery store or something like that. To go from what happened during COVID to go from the person who's, at the running Health and Human Services and talking about autism is only affects children and talk about them in those terms, or to say that people with mental health shouldn't have access to medications and so forth. This is eugenics, and we have to start calling it what it is.
And the droves of people who came out, who are autistic, are adults who pay taxes, have jobs, have families,
right.
Things like that. It's like, how is this person able to say that? It's like, he doesn't like to run this by anybody before he just like announces it, and people around him are like, yeah, that's right, kind of thing, and just kind of nodding their head, and then for Dr. Oz, who is kind of a quack of a doctor.
Oh, for sure.
And when he had his show on, he had told many things that were not true about, especially the diet industry. He was super, people are vulnerable in that community, and people will believe whatever they hear. And he would frequently mention some kind of supplement, some kind of thing where, people are losing all this weight and people are running out and getting this thing. And it's like, that's not true. Yeah. And, you're a doctor and you're trying to do this. And then he said something about, the real problem is people aren't taking care of themselves and, not being healthy. So it's their fault that they need, all these intervention, and they need to see a doctor's often. So if they would just fix that, kind of thing, it's just like, there's like such a big broader conversation about that than just, eating healthy and then walking or doing some kind of activity that's just going to solve everybody's problems, because we know that's not true. So it's very disheartening.
And it's even worse. What Oz said was even worse than that, because he's talking about, obviously everything you said is true, but he's saying you have an obligation to your country to work out and, maintain your physical health. This is Hitlerian crap. That's what this is. This is the mentality of the Hitler Youth and, all of that stuff. And there's always been, just like there's always been an incredibly racist strain and populist thinking throughout the world, including in America, there's always been among some people who are kind of health nuts this sort of fascist authoritarian mentality, and this sort of eugenic mentality. Oh, our kitty just jumped up on the table.
Don't mess up our...
Yeah, don't pause anything or shut anything off while we're in the middle of talking. And obviously that doesn't describe everybody who's into populism or everybody who's into, the health movement or whatever. That's not my point. It's just, it's there. Even in the environmental movement, there's always been this kind of weird sort of fascist mentality. A very tiny minority of environmentalists, of course, but in every kind of movement, there's always the freaks, the weirdos and the people who just want to, Elon Musk, another guy who's insane.
For sure.
He is insane. We have to stop pretending we just went through this thing with Joe Biden and people talking about whether or not he was, mentally capable of continuing as being the president, and whether or not he was, maybe facing dementia or something like that, which I don't think he was. But regardless, we had this supposedly hard conversation about Joe Biden, and he eventually drops out of the race because of it. And we can't have a serious conversation. And we haven't even gotten to Trump's obvious mental decline. But, you've got people making huge, impactful decisions like RFK Jr., Dr. Oz. The Centers for Medicaid and Medicare are not, that's nothing to mess with. They have huge influence on healthcare. And of course, Musk, in his unappointed weirdo position of just
slashing jobs.
We have to start talking about the mental health crisis in the Trump administration. It's serious. It's real. These people are self-treating in many cases. We know Musk does. There have been a lot of rumors about Trump being addicted to Adderall. There's some serious questions about the general mental health and mental competence of this group of people. Meanwhile, the obvious irony is they're going after people who have legitimate mental health problems and trying to make it impossible for us to actually get medication that helps.
Right.
It's hard to put all this together and make any sense out of it. But there's this self-destructive streak among the Trump cabal, for whatever, I can't even think of another term for it. And we don't want to have a conversation about it.
And it is, the thing that's also disheartening is people believe what comes out of their mouths, and just believe it on face value. Even as Easter was approaching, he said, "Oh, eggs are down 87%. Gas is $1.97 a gallon." Where is that $1.97 a gallon? Maybe in one tiny town, in one rural place, but it's not like all across the United States, people are seeing low oil prices. So that part is infuriating too, just because it's just like people think like, oh my God, he is doing a great job. Oh my God, and just like believing anything that comes out of his mouth. So those are my rants.
Right. Well, and the thing I would add to that is, the media isn't helping. They're not doing their jobs. They just talk about, we speak truth to power. That's always their, they pat themselves back and they make all these kind of grandiose statements about how important they are. And it's like, if at every turn, if you're repeating Trump's propaganda or framing every question the way Trump would frame it, you're not speaking truth to power. You're just part of this propaganda machine. There's the whole story about this guy who was deported to El Salvador. The Trump administration admits that they made a mistake. They're in contempt of court. The judge ordered them to facilitate his return. The Supreme Court said, yes, they have to facilitate his return. And they're basically saying, guess what? We're not going to do anything about it. The president of El Salvador is tweeting nonstop about how he's not going to return this guy. And the Trump administration is like, all right, cool.
Right.
The president of El Salvador tweeted a thing about how we're never going to return him. And then he added emojis, which were an American flag, an El Salvadoran flag, and a handshake emoji between the two, which is saying that he and the United States have agreed not to return the guy. And yet the courts are saying you have to. It's mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling.
Anyway, but the media then, when Democrats finally have the spine to speak up and say this is ridiculous, this is a violation of due process, they keep asking, what was the senator's name, Van Hollen, who went down to, he's a representative, not a senator, went down to El Salvador and met with the guy. He's on, all these Sunday morning talk shows, and they're saying, well, how can you prove that this Garcia guy is not a member of a gang? They're literally taking the Trump position and using it as a way of questioning. If you're repeating the president's propaganda, you're not speaking truth to power. You're doing just the opposite.
Exactly.
And when you should be saying, how is it possible that the president and the administration are violating due process rights when all the courts have agreed that this is a violation of due process, when the Supreme Court has agreed that it's a violation of due process? The issue is not, is he a gang member? The issue is due process, period. That's the beginning and the end of the question.
Well,
and if they frame it the other way, they're just participating in this really, really obvious propaganda.
And the problem is that, if they let that happen, then at any time, at any point, anybody can be just sent to another country, no matter what, kind of thing. So you're just opening the door to that, and that's the thing that's scary and like other people are worried about.
And Trump is literally talking about how he wants to be able to send Americans to this prison in El Salvador.
Yeah.
Everything, when Trump was out of office and the Department of Justice and the New York Attorney General and all these other prosecutors were investigating all of the illegal things that Trump did, all we heard about from the right was, it's a witch hunt. They talked about due process. They talked about using law enforcement for retaliation, this, that, and the other thing. and of course we all knew, anyone with a functioning brain knew this was BS from start to finish, okay? But now, of course, it's 180 degrees the other way around, where Trump is doing all of the things that he accused the Biden administration of doing. Everything Trump said that the Biden administration was doing to him, he is actually doing to everyone he doesn't like. There's a new story coming out that he's going to be signing some executive orders directing the IRS to audit organizations that he doesn't like. And these aren't even like, political organizations. These are organizations that make, charitable donations and actually help people. But he doesn't like helping people. So he's going to target, organizations for tax audits as a way of trying to persecute organizations that he doesn't like. Every single thing that he complained about with the Biden administration, all of which was nonsense, he's doing on a daily basis. And the media is just sitting on their hands. They're acting like this is completely normal. I was afraid the courts were going to fail us because during the Biden administration, I didn't get a whole lot of confidence in the things that the courts were doing. Now it's clear that the courts are the only institution in the United States that's actually trying to rein in this nonsense. The media, for all their self-indulgent, grandiose language and patting themselves on the back and everything like that, utter, complete failure right now. I saw Peter Sagal, the guy who hosts Wait, Don't Tell Me, whining once again about how people are so mean to the New York Times. And I actually responded, and I'm like, for the love of God, man, I say this with all due respect, stop whining about this and actually try to do something to improve your profession. We lawyers do. We criticize each other. We hold each other accountable. We report unethical conduct of other lawyers to disciplinary authorities, stuff like that. We do that all the time. In Illinois, I can get disciplined by the Illinois Supreme Court if I'm aware of another lawyer who breaks the ethical rules and I don't squeal on them, right? Journalists need to take that attitude. They need to hold one another accountable. Don't come whining to me if you guys can't clean up your act. But, this is all Peter Sagal does anymore, is he just whines about how, somebody wrote this really cool article in the New York Times about something that's happening in, Central Asia or something like that. So you can't criticize any journalism because this one person wrote an interesting story that you wouldn't find anywhere else. So you can trash and burn the country, but one person came up with some interesting story from a foreign country. So we're supposed to pretend that the media is above criticism. They're failing us more than anyone else right now. And they were all throughout the campaign.
Yeah.
End of rant.
Yeah. But it is frustrating, and it's just like it's going to be a long haul. And we know that a lot of you are feeling the same way that we are, and just kind of being just what's going to happen next, of thing. So we are with you in that, and as we always said before, you can always leave us a direct message on our Instagram if you want. If you don't have anybody to talk to, we're happy to do that. You can leave a comment for us. We're happy to reply to a comment too. Thank you for listening today.
Thanks.
And we will definitely see you next week. And
high five.
High five.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.